everybody. Welcome to Dungeon of Deadly Delights. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Rob DiLauro, and with me, as always, is Holly Interlandi. Holly, what is going on?
Hello.
Quick bit of news before the top, at the top of the show. We'd actually mentioned that we were going to move the show to podcast and podcast only, but we actually had another meeting about it, and it actually turns out that a lot of people weren't happy with us leaving the YouTube channel. So thank you very much for that, guys. It seemed like a lot of people were really happy that we actually decided to stay on YouTube, but we're also going to have the podcast as well. So
we're going to do both.
We're going to do both.
The more.
But we also get to, keep the show going as well. So we're really, really excited about that, because that was a real Sophie's choice for us to get rid of the YouTube show, especially with this episode. You need visuals.
Yeah, definitely with this episode. I agree.
Yeah. So at the top of the show, Holly, have you seen anything recently that?
Last week I actually watched for the very first time Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, or Brain Dead, as it's called in the U.S.
Exactly, and that's a huge rite of passage, and we should definitely talk about that. What were your thoughts on Dead Alive?
I was just flabbergasted by how gross it is. Like, just impressively gross. I mean, it's super campy, so it didn't like fall into maybe my favorite films of all time or anything, but
right.
it's so enjoyable. Like, and I've never seen as much blood and pus and sentient digestive systems and like massive like turkey mom zombie thing, but zombie babies, like it's just
with her face dripping into the soup and shit.
Oh my god, like it's just so ridiculous. And yeah, I know there are people who claim that it is the goriest movie ever, and I think I agree. I can't think of anything that would top it.
There was actually supposedly like a couple record breakers that beat that out, but I still think it's the king of gore for sure.
What could have beat it out, I wonder?
I think initially it was actually the Evil Dead remake was supposedly like a contender, because of the bloody rain and all that stuff. Yeah. And I think the scene with Jessica Chastain in it, Chapter 2, they used like gallons and gallons and gallons of blood for that. So, but no, it doesn't hold up to that. It doesn't hold a candle to that at all.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a difference between like amount of blood and amount of like evisceration.
Yeah.
And Dead Alive for sure holds the record on just pure mutilation. Like,
I absolutely agree.
Any movie that has a guy marching into a room and killing everyone with a lawnmower.
My favorite thing is the priest. I kick ass for the Lord. I love that.
Yes.
Kung Fu.
That's a good impaling too. Like, just wow. It was a trip. It's totally a trip.
There's a couple things we want to mention at the top of the show that obviously, this is going to air like a week later, but it still holds relevance. First of all is the passing of Little Richard. If you're a rock and roll fan, that guy's like, the ultimate architect when it comes to rock and, just the style and sexual freedom of it. And there'd be no David Bowie or Led Zeppelin or punk rock or soul or any of that shit without
I'm pretty sure rock music wouldn't exist without it.
No, absolutely not. And the other cool thing about Little Richard is that, we mentioned it in the Alien episode, but I mean, he's cemented into the, into film history, especially in this genre, because of the Predator chopper scene. If you guys remember, they were introduced in the chopper, and they were playing Long Tall Sally on the radio, and it was just, it was interesting because it was a perfect song choice for that. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't go like crazy metal with it or anything. You know what I mean? Like, they used an interesting song choice. Because, Long Tall Sally, kind of has these punk rock, rock elements to it, obviously. And it just worked, But the interesting thing about it is, like, you know, you learn so much about those characters with no real dialogue at all.
Yeah.
Them joking around with each other, you know, Dutch and, you know, talking about the coordinates, you know, one of them shaving. There's nothing. And then, like, it was just like, okay, let's get to the action. You know who these guys are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, yeah, rest in peace, Little Richard, man. That, you know, people say, you know, rock is dead all the time, and it certainly is now.
Yeah. Literally now.
Yeah, for real. And of course, happy 40th anniversary, Friday the 13th. I know Holly isn't a huge slasher fan, but I literally wear Friday the 13th on my sleeve. Adrian King was the first interview I ever had in my career. I actually did it at a Starbucks. It was one of the first times I've ever interviewed anybody, and had no recording equipment or anything. So I'm just like jotting down everything that she was saying, like really, really fast, you know, trying to. And yeah, here we are 10 years later. Friday 13th is a major thing for me. And then, you know, of course, Ari Lehman, young Jason Voorhees, was very integral in my life. When my son was in the NICU, he contacted me all the time, you know, hey, are you feeling, you know, he was just very, you know, like very soothing and calming, you know, when it came to my son and when he's going through his horrible stuff. So yeah, I have a huge spot in my heart for Friday the 13th, not only just as a film, but, you know, the people as well. So that's a huge anniversary. And I hope Friday the 13th comes back.
Is it actually today? Like it was released today?
Yes, 40th
Okay.
anniversary of Friday the 13th. Which makes you feel old, doesn't it? I mean, I'm 40 years old.
I'm turning 40 this year, 41. Man. I mean, I'm the same age as Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I'm 41, you know, but yeah, not too far off from Friday the 13th. So, whew, talk about a classic. I mean, it's been around for 40 years. That's pretty much it. So, with that, guys, we're going to talk about our topic for tonight. And I know Holly's really excited about this one, and she actually had a list written down of the categories and stuff. So, Holly, go ahead and tell everybody what we're going to be talking about tonight.
We're going to be talking about short films.
Mm-hmm.
And I adore short films. I think they're really, really interesting and experimental. I think, you know, prior to streaming services, they were really outside of mainstream viewing. Like you don't go to a theater to watch a short film usually, and so not a lot of people have, you know, would see them. I think now that we have streaming services putting short films up like Shudder and Hulu and stuff like that, that's really good exposure for them. But still, you can do so much with a short film that you can't do with a full-length feature. Like, yeah, you can go anywhere with it, really. I mean, you can tell a complete story. You can tell just a little chunk of a concept. You can just basically just scare people shitless. You know, with like 2 minutes of something. Like it's just the possibilities are just endless. And also, with these shorts, majority of them, in fact, I'd say all of them, are available for free online on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So there's no excuse to not watch these.
Well, you know, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. You know, the one thing that really bugs me is when people say, like, you know, short film directors aren't legit. And you know what? We're going to debunk that, of course, tonight. With our short into feature film, you know, presentation, you know, of the show. But
yeah,
I've actually done 2 short films. One I did with an actual crew, and the other I just did with a smaller crew, like in my house in Michigan at the time. It's really, first of all, if you're trying to tell a narrative, you know, in that small amount of time, that's very, very difficult. Number one. You know, there's a lot of skill and stuff that needs to be involved to be able to tell, you know, a solid story the right way. You know,
yeah, I've never made a short film, but I was lucky enough to be on the judging board for the Famous Monsters Silver Screen Festival for 3 years running. So I got to watch a lot of a lot of horror shorts. Wow, that's a tongue twister there. And I just got a greater appreciation for them over those 3 years. Like they're just, you can do so much with them. And again, like directors of short films often go on to make full-length versions of their shorts. like all the time. So it's you know, one you could argue that the craft is just as, you know, just as involved as it would be for a feature.
Well, what is the first category in the short film list that we're going to talk about?
Well, yeah, I was writing down a bunch of stuff because I realized that a lot of the short films that we have picked to talk about fall into certain categories.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one that I've noticed, and probably the most popular one, is a short film that either becomes a feature or is based on a feature.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the same director, sometimes not, but it happens so often.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one I wanted to talk about was Neil Blomkamp, the director of District 9, which actually also started out as a short. Directed District 9, Elysium, Chappie. He has his own studio. It's called Oat Studios. It's on YouTube, and it's essentially his pitching process for, like, this could be an awesome movie that I could make because he's got a budget, man, and he's got actors.
Mm-hmm.
And these are really great films. Like, there are a whole bunch of really cool ones. Like, there's one called Raka, which is about a lizard alien race that takes over the earth, and it stars Sigourney Weaver. Like, whoa. It's a 15 minutes, but it's a big deal, and lots of great effects.
Well, to his credit, too, he also gave us Sharlto Copley, and we didn't know anything about that guy, and he's just one of the most unique, incredible actors we've ever seen. So,
yeah.
So there was that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, all of the stuff on the channel is worth watching, but my personal favorite that I picked is called Zygote. Mm-hmm. It's a 20-minute short film. It actually stars Dakota Fanning as in the main role.
Nice.
As the soldier, and Jose Pablo Cantillo as her commander. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of The Thing vibes. You know, it takes place in a sort of Arctic base. Mm-hmm. But the short film starts, you know, classically in medias res, where you have no idea what's been happening. Mm-hmm. But these two are the only people left alive on the base. They're ravaged, you know, like everybody's dead. There's blood everywhere. There are alarms going off. And you don't know what's been chasing them or what's caused all this until about halfway through the short. When, you know, and Neil Blomkamp does a great job of building the suspense as they run across have to go outside, and they have to figure out, you know, secret codes to get into rooms and stuff. And then you see what's actually been chasing them the whole time, and it's this incredibly disturbing monster of, not really a monster, but it essentially, you find out that the monster has been collecting these people's DNA as it goes along. Mm-hmm. And then it replicates all of it, like, you know, like just a chain of DNA strands. Mm-hmm. And it shows up visually in the way the monster looks. So He's got all these millions of human eyeballs all over the place. He's got arms with like 16 hands coming out, and like tree trunks for legs, and so some of his body parts are just like people, like stuck together. Mm-hmm. So it's just mind-blowingly weird. And I remember watching it.
Blomkamp's a strange bird for sure.
Yeah, well, and then I turned it off, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like it was so cool, and the rest of the movie's great too. I mean, he's making.
You know what really upsets me when it comes to Blomkamp? Like, I mean, they showed all kinds of different like concept art and stuff like that. His vision of Alien would have been phenomenal. Oh my God.
Actually, in fact, a lot of people said this Zygote film was sort of his pitch to be like, this is what I can make an Alien movie.
Wow. I believe it. Totally.
Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. They have their own YouTube channel, so go and check it out. Check out all their movies, but Zygote in particular, for sure.
one of the interesting ones I wanted to bring up as I was doing research for this, and I've seen it before in the past, because I was kind of late to the game when it came to the movie. I only saw it maybe like 3 years ago, and I absolutely fell in love with it like immediately. It's like one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. But it's interesting to see the evolution of what we do in the shadows. And it's got, okay, so it's obviously like written by, you know, Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, who are like, you know, these monsters, you know, monster visionaries now. But man, this is so DIY. It's like they're wearing like these, almost like these fake wax vampire teeth. They've got this like really like
was the short actually called What We Do in the Shadows?
What We Do in the Shadows, yeah. It's 30
yeah, okay, so it's okay, interesting.
It's so DIY. You know, like they use this pancake makeup that probably costs like, you know, $5 or whatever it costs in Australia. Like it's very, very cheap makeup and stuff. And you know what? A lot of the comedy doesn't land. So, you know, it's just a testament to like, you know, not every single time is your first draft going to be the best one. You know what I mean? Like they obviously had to go back to the drawing board over and over again, repeatedly. And of course, you know, budget helps too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But, you know, like there was a kernel there of, you know, like what they were trying to do, which is, you know, basically like, you know, just show the lives of a vampire, you know, through a documentary. So you could see that part of it. And there was, you know, a couple things, you know, from the movie that were kind of put into play, like vampires don't do the dishes and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's interesting how sloppy it was. And I love those guys, and I love that movie, and I love that TV show. You know, all of it's just amazing. But yeah, like
the movie's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah. But I mean, if you watch the short, you'll probably feel the same way. Like, man, this just, whew, it just didn't land the first time.
Yeah, how did this happen?
Yeah. So that was the first one I wanted to bring up, because that was it's just fascinating to see the process. You know,
yeah.
Like that you're not going to get it every time. You know what I mean?
Well, and as you said, you know, there are examples of short films that just don't work, and then you're like, okay.
And I'm probably talking shit because it probably won like a shit ton of awards and stuff. You know what I mean? And it also gave them the money to be able to make the movie. So, you know, maybe
clearly
I'm talking
somebody watched it and liked it because they got a movie out of it. So, you know.
It obviously did something, but I'm just being a prick about it. Like, it wasn't, you know, that great. What's next on your list?
I wanted to bring up, while we're still on the topic of features, I wanted to bring up Lights Out and David F. Sandberg, who basically launched his career with these little 2.5-minute shorts that he makes with his wife, who stars in all of them.
Lotta.
And Lotta Loston is her name. And they're really just conceptual shorts. I mean, they barely go over 3 minutes. They're built around a freaky concept. And Lights Out in particular, as you all know, it actually ended up getting a feature film that Sandberg directed. And now Sandberg is doing like, you know, Shazam and stuff. So he's way on his way. Thanks to this little itty bitty short, which is just really, really effective for what it is. It's just a woman who's going to bed, and she goes to the end of the hallway, and then she has the light on, and then she turns it off, and she sees the silhouette of a woman in front of like the faint glowing light from another room. And she goes, what? And she turns the light back on, and there's nothing there. And then turns it off, and the silhouette goes back. So she keeps turning it off and turning it on again. And, you know, at one time when she turns the light off, the silhouette has like, you know, advanced like 20 feet and is like practically right in front of her. And it's like this super shocking moment. It's really freaky. And I think what, you know, and of course there's a super jump scare ending, and she hides in her bed under the sheets and stuff. But I think what's so effective about it, at least this particular one, is that it's sort of the reverse of what you expect in scary things. Like usually when you turn the lights on that you see the scary thing, right? You know, or like, you know, when the lights off, you can't see anything, and that's the scary thing. But to have a moment that's creepy enough with the lights off,
Yeah.
like it's also the phenomenon of like I don't know if any of you watch Doctor Who, but it's the sort of the Weeping Angels phenomenon
Oh yeah.
that monsters are scarier when you can't see them advancing towards you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at them, and then if you look away for a second, then they may have come like 20 feet, and that's really scary too. So
Am
I
I
just think
am I mistaken, or did the creature like have like a bunch of hair on it and stuff, like when they show it at the end, or?
she's got like wonky eyes,
Yeah.
um, and I think she's got regular hair though.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I just remember looking like that weird thing from the old honeycomb commercials. It was like, we want honeycomb.
yeah, I mean, she's not a normal looking ghost when
Hmm.
she shows up at the end. But that's not even the end. Isn't even the best part. It's all the stuff in the hallway with the lights out and lights on, and that simple concept is freaky enough to get people's attention. And he's done a whole bunch of other stuff too, like he's done one called Attic Panic. He did one called Pictured, which is about a person in a photograph who keeps moving. And I think he actually did a sequel to Lights Out as well. But
Yeah,
they're
we're going
all
to talk
just
about it later in the show. It's called Shadowed. It's something he actually created during quarantine. Um,
oh yeah yeah. That, I mean, God, what a great use of quarantine.
yeah, but the
But
guy, he likes to play obviously, with shadows and light and
yeah,
that perspectives and all kind. Obviously he's the director. He is because he does have those abilities. Um,
yeah. I actually didn't see the full length Lights Out, so I don't know if it's any good.
I don't know. Let us know in the comments, guys. I've never seen Lights Out either.
Yeah,
So.
the short is great, but I never saw the film, so
Mhm.
who knows?
Well, speaking of visionaries, we've got two that I want to talk about with our short to feature category, and that, of course, is Mr. Lee Wanell and James Wan.
Oh
A
yes,
little short film from 2003 called Saw.
never heard of
Anyone?
it.
No.
No, no, it's must be an obscure thing.
Yeah, it's just one of these little small things that like didn't really capture people's imaginations or attention.
No,
So.
it's not a huge franchise or anything.
So anyway, yeah. So Saul, if you're not familiar, was a 2003 short film starring Lee Wanell, directed by James Wan. And these two young guys, just created a short film where Lee Wanell is basically in the reverse bear trap situation. You do see Billy the puppet for the first time. I'm not really sure who did the voice for Billy. It does sound very faintly like Tobin Bell, but I don't think it was. But yeah, it's just basically the scene where Lee Wanell is captured. He does the Shawnee Smith portion of the movie where she's in the reverse bear trap. She's got a
Yeah,
victim on the floor, and it turns he just basically says. The key is, within the victim. So, of course, Lee Wanell has to kind of cut through, and turns out the guy's still alive. And, this whole time he's going through an investigation process. There's a cop talking to him, and it's really simple. But, I mean, simple enough to land them not only like a really popular movie, but one of the biggest franchises in horror history.
yeah,
But you could see the just the thought process and the creativity of these two guys have just gone on to become Lee Wanell is on his way, but James Wan is like Mr. Big Time Blockbuster.
yeah. He directed Aquaman, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got like 4 deals in the pipe right now, and I think the same thing's going to happen to Lee. I mean, The Invisible Man, if you guys have not seen it, is remarkable.
Lee Wanell is awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I knew
And
that
James Wan is just huge. I mean, he was the producer on the Lights Out feature, I think.
he
And
was,
all you have to do is say produced by James Wan, and everyone goes, ooh.
and they go, yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was interesting to see these two young guys who probably had little to no money when it came to that feature, and just same thing, played with scope and light and shadows and stuff like that, and here they are now, making big waves on the scene, which is incredible to see. So.
Yeah. a testament to the short film, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you do it right, then
Yeah.
people pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any others for this list?
Of course, Michael Dougherty's Season's Greetings,
Oh, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which is 2D animation. I think it was from 1995 or something.
The man who will soon bring help resurrect Hellraiser.
Yeah,
David Gordon
yeah,
Green, which
big
oh
news.
man.
But this short was, I mean, obviously Trick or Treat was a cult hit. You know, it didn't do well at the box office, but then after a couple of years, people started obsessing over it. And this short, Season's Greetings, is the first introduction to Sam, who became the iconic Trick or Treat character afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's really simple. It's just, like I said, 2D hand-drawn animation of Halloween night where this little kid, Sam, in a costume, is getting trick-or-treating, getting candy. And there's a creepy old dude hiding behind a tree,
mm-hmm.
Who's stalking him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh no, the poor little kid is going to get raped or whatever. And they go into a back alley. And you're like, okay, this shit's gonna go down.
I never got that from it. Jesus Christ.
And whatever he's gonna do to him, it's not gonna be good. You know what I mean? So then they pull away from the alley, and you hear a bunch of sound effects of like somebody getting beat up and basically getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Sam coming out of the alley dragging a giant sack behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, oh, this dude's not human.
But then you can also hear like I think you can hear faintly hear like cats like screaming in the bag. Like there's just all kinds of shit in the bag, basically.
Well, and it's a great bait and switch too, because you're like, oh, well, this poor little kid. And like, oh, wait a minute, you know, that's not a little kid.
And Sam went on to become one of the most iconic characters in horror.
Yeah.
So the next category we're going to talk about is music videos.
Yep. Music videos, which is a highly underrated form of storytelling, I think, because so many people with mainstream music videos have just gotten to the point where there's always a love interest, and they're always like dancers, and there's some like tragic love story thing involved, and it's like the mainstream singer like gyrating around the pole or whatever, and you don't think of that as to be like a short film exactly.
Yeah.
But there are examples of bands and artists who use the music video as a venue to make a statement or like basically just tell a horrifying tale.
Oh, speaking of music, I forgot to tell you that you know, just out of sheer boredom, just to see what I can endure, I watched the new Cats, and I did want to kill myself.
Oh my God! Wow, I don't think you could get me to sit down and watch that. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I really don't.
It's really as bad as people say.
Wow.
If I had a noose, I probably would have slipped into it. So, but anyway, music videos. So I guess I'll start.
Yeah, I mean, the seminal one is obviously.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned this many times before in passing. For the past 10 years, I've been in this industry, but I never really got a chance to really seriously like dive into it. So this is awesome for me. But you know, the music video that inspired me to become a horror fan in the first place was Michael Jackson's Thriller when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I was, you know, at a point then where I was just terrified of everything. And you know, for some reason that particular piece like just really spoke to me. And I think it also had to do with if you guys are old enough, you know, there was a making of also. So you got to see John Landis doing his work and Rick Baker doing his work and, you know, all that stuff. So you got to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and then they play the video, you know, after that and so on and so forth. So yeah, you know, like, just because that music video, like, you know, like sparked my, you know, imagination when it came to zombies and, made me like, you know, appreciate, you know, of course the work of Rick Baker and, you know, just, and I just saw that video a couple years ago, and it really does like hold up. I mean, it's so beautifully done. It's so expertly crafted, and you know, like Rick Baker was talking about it during his the release of his book Metamorphosis, there was a lot of issues with that music video. And the thing is, like, you can't see one stitch, one flaw, one wart, nothing. It's just
well, it's not always the way it is. Like, everyone's like, oh, this is a work of genius, and then you hear the behind the scenes and it's like, oh, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work.
Yeah, people didn't show up, so crew members actually had to dress like zombies, and yeah, it was a time crunch, and it was not one of Rick appreciates it, but it's not one of his finer moments. He was actually really pissed off about the whole experience. But yeah, it really really sparked my my love for Vincent Price and all of it. Just
yeah, man, Vincent Price, talk about an all-star cast. You got Vincent Price doing the spoken word thing.
Mm-hmm. What's the music video you wanted to talk about?
Well, I just had two that I wanted to mention. First of all, I think when talking about innovative and creepy ass music videos, we have to bring up Tool.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, they're a progressive experimental metal band, and their guitarist Adam Jones actually came into the band off of working with Stan Winston's studio in Hollywood.
Yeah.
With special creature effects and makeup. And he started applying those to Tool's music videos, which were all stop motion in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
So, just literally just like little stop motion figures going, and they're not like any other music video you've ever seen.
No.
They're just completely innovative. Adam Jones is a friggin' genius.
Mm-hmm.
Even later on, when they started doing with Vicarious, when they started using computer animation more,
yeah,
it's their videos, I think, still retain that sense of palpable dread. Like it doesn't feel like a cheap gimmick for them to do to use the computer animation, because the imagery is still so harsh and hardcore, Yeah. Although the music video that I did want to bring up for this particular discussion is Stinkfist.
Mm-hmm.
Taken off their 1996 album Enema, and of course famously renamed track number 1 for MTV because apparently Stinkfist was offensive.
Yeah, a little bit.
The music video is really fascinating. It's
But Prison Sex was fine. Isn't that weird? Like, they didn't change the title for that at all. Prison Sex is fine.
Oh, well, yeah, Prison Sex is fine. Yeah, well, we're not going to change the title. Prison Sex. It's just Stinkfist. Like rape is fine. But fisting is not. I don't know. I don't pretend to know how these people's minds work. But Stinkfist, or track number 1, as they called it, is this incredible landscape of a short film where we open on these people in a sort of industrialized warehouse kind of facility, and they're covered in blue dust, and they don't look really human. They're sort of doing experiments on themselves, almost like they don't understand anything about their own bodies. They're inhaling stuff through pipes. One of the guys, they're sort of detaching parts of themselves and putting them in other spaces, and one of the guys eats a nail and it comes out his belly button. It's like it strikes you as a bunch of people who don't know they're people or don't know where they came from, doing experiments on themselves to figure out what's going on. And then of course by the end, it's revealed in a new light that they are actually human. Their skin becomes transparent. You can see all their organs and their skeletal structure. All the places where they took flesh off and stuff is heavily scarred. They start to develop shame almost, and they're like, oh shit, we're naked,
Yeah.
And it's really an incredible journey.
As he's singing elbow deep inside the borderline.
Yeah, that song scandalized me. I was 16 and I fucking loved it. And then, did you have any other music videos?
Actually, before we move on, my favorite though is always going to be Sober. That's my favorite Tool music video of all time.
Yeah.
Just that little puppet guy with his little hand,
Yeah.
It was really cool. Really super cool. And
Absolutely.
And that was like and the videos that you're mentioning now, like that was around the time where like nobody had any fucking clue what Tool looked like. That was like the big fucking mystery, you know?
Yeah, no, that's what makes it so great, is because when I distinctly remember being a fan of Tool, like they didn't use images of themselves on anything. Not in their liner notes, not in their videos, not in just nothing.
Nope. So there's a ton of music videos that we can actually talk about, but there's one that really impacted me, and it, I think it came out like maybe like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was off the Death Magnetic record, which of course is Metallica. It was 8 minutes and 36 seconds long. It was called All Nightmare Long, and it really just focused on the Tunguska experiments. If you guys aren't familiar, I think back in 1908 there was a crater that actually hit that portion of Russia. And the music video just like just plays into like, you know, Russian scientists, like, you know, they find this like spore and they're playing around with it and becomes, you know, kind of this like its own creature, you know, its own organism and stuff. And then it just like turns into complete havoc, and it has to do with like animated like fucking zombies like running around the earth and shit like that. And oh my God, it was so fucking good. If you guys haven't seen it.
Wow.
Yeah. 8 minutes 36 seconds long. One of the hardest fucking songs they've ever done, like in years. But yeah, it all just really works perfectly. That's definitely one of my favorite music videos, like, you know, on the horror side of things.
Well, yeah, especially one having been done so recently, because music videos have taken a dive in popularity, and when people make them, they're usually not very creative.
Well, that's actually, you know, it's interesting you brought that up, because I do want to give props. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Like Billie Eilish, man, she has the horror aesthetic down, the darkness aesthetic down. You know, playing, you know, with real life spiders, and, you know, the way she contorts her body, and you know, just the dark cinematography that she uses, and she's probably I think Dave Grohl was actually I think he's the one who actually said she's the only one right now that's doing something interesting with music.
Yeah.
And I would agree to a certain fault, you know, to a certain fault. She's
doing something that's definitely different. Like, it's not what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, especially now. Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah.
But she's giving us that dark, moody aesthetic that we've been lacking in music videos for years and years and years. So props to you, Billy.
Well, one more music video I wanted to mention was one by a Japanese metal band that I love, Deer on Grey. Their videos have always been super bizarre and controversial and horrifying, and I think when the video for Obscure, like the uncensored version, dropped on YouTube, everyone was like, "Oh my God, think of the children!" Like, it was a huge deal. But the video I want to bring up is for a song called "Agitated Screams of Maggots," and it's actually an animated video. It's entirely animated. The band does not appear in it at all. The animation is by a guy named Keita Kurosaka, and he's again part of sort of the eroguro scene in Japan, which essentially means the erotic grotesque. Like his imagery is all about bodies and like decapitations and losing limbs and stuff. And the actual music video is really disturbing too. Like it's this, you know, the mom is making food and a worm comes out of the food and divides itself in half, and then the girl comes home and the two worm halves start having sex, and then you know, and the worm grows, and you know, it's in their soup when they start eating, and it's really, really weird, but it's amazing to watch. It really is. It's, you know, again, like everything else, it's on YouTube, and it just to see the novelty of something that's that transgressive. Like there are some images in that video that will make you go, ugh. Yeah. You know, even if you're a horror fan. So if that at all interests you, because I know it does me, then check out that music video for Agitated Screams of Maggots, because it's really cool.
And was So, I mean, obviously that wasn't like, like nationally released or anything, that music video, right? It was pretty underground.
No. I mean, this was back when they were releasing their records in America still, but that video was just nobody, they didn't play it anywhere, or
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was formally released, but just not to the majority of the public.
Yeah. And before we go, obviously, like, I just have to give, I mean, God, we can talk about music videos all day. We could do an entire episode on music videos. But I do want to give props to 9 Inch Nails.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Just everything that I remember picking up something called the Broken Video, and it was so taboo. I don't know if you recall this at all, but like it was sold to me when I was like 15 years old. This guy like that owned a record shop was just like, here, I don't, like he didn't give a fuck. But of course it had like the regular music videos, and some of them were like uncut, like Wish and stuff like that, where you see kind of like the whole Thunderdome thing and all that stuff. But there was some really interesting stuff in there. There was actually one clip that I do recall pretty accurately, was a guy who was torturing another guy, and they were watching 9 Inch Nails music videos like on all these different screens, and he was actually torturing him the entire time
while watching 9 Inch Nails videos,
taking off limbs and all kind. Yeah, it was pretty nuts, and a lot of people actually thought it was real for a while. I remember that. But yeah, it was called the Broken Video. It was like one of my prized possessions, and I have my friends come up and be like, guys, you gotta watch the Broken Video, man, it's fucking great.
Back when things could actually be underground because you couldn't find them on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously like Trent Reznor, before therapy and Prozac and all that stuff, but yeah, definitely have to give props to 9 Inch Nails. But I mean, God, the list just goes on and on. There's so many good fucking. Next category is just short films that we love in general, right?
Mm-hmm. Miscellaneous stuff we've seen.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead and start on that, because there's some really awesome stuff in these lists too.
Yeah, well, I want to take this opportunity to talk about a film that's basically just a concept stretched to 10 minutes, and it's just impeccably done. It's nightmarish. It's called Curve.
Yeah.
Directed by Tim Egon. I think it's his only directing credit, actually. But it's just this really simple scenario of a woman who wakes up and finds herself suspended on a concrete wall that goes down like this and then curves and then goes down again into like this black chasm, like this abyss. And
I watched that on your behalf, and it's very super effective. But
there are pretty terrifying noises coming from the abyss. And so you're like, okay, and so you don't want to drop down there, but like the whole film is her like trying to get purchase, like she scrapes her hands up trying to get purchase on this concrete wall to scoot back up to safety, and sometimes she makes some progress and sometimes she falls down further, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat because you're like, oh shit, and well, I'm gonna spoil the ending. Spoilers, guys. At the end, it starts to rain.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of like, oh, she's fucked. And
it's a wonderfully dark metaphor for just life in general, though, isn't it?
It is. It's
because you're always trying to climb, trying to scrape, whatever the situation is in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so simple, but it's just the way that he pulled this off is just really impressive. Like a simple special effects set, and just really good cinematography.
So a couple years ago, I did an interview with a woman named Jill Gevargizian, and Jill had done one short film at that point in the past, and I remember saying to her in that interview, just basically like, you're definitely going to go places, and I can't wait to see what happens with your career and stuff. She kind of like shyly said, thanks, like whatever. But Jill went on to do a short called The Stylist, and she used an actress named Najara Townsend. Yeah, so this is basically like you know, this is Jill's life. So, you know, it's fascinating because Jill, you know, tried to make her own, I wouldn't necessarily even call her a horror villain, but she used her own life, you know, because she is a stylist. That's her real job when she's not, you know, directing. So Najara actually, you know, plays this stylist, and she's got like this almost doll-like ensemble. She looks very like, you know, demure, you know, kind of, you know, like I wouldn't necessarily call her like shy or anything like that, but she looks different than most women you'd see, you know, walking around, you know, like a cityscape or whatever, you know what I mean? She just looks very innocent. So this woman walks into this salon late at night. She's a real loudmouth, you know. She's just like, oh, Claire, good, you know, thank God you're open. Like, you know, I got this fucking promotion coming up and I need to look good and this kind of shit, you know what I mean? And she offers her a glass of wine and she says, do you have time? And she says, of course, I can make time for this, you know. Just like one of those loudmouth, you know, like business women, you know what I mean? And so she starts drinking the wine.
Karens of the world.
Oh, she's totally Karen, 100%. Yeah. So she wakes up and she's like tied to a chair. And this is after the fact that Claire, Najara Townsend's character in the short, she kind of scalps her in like maniac fashion. And she starts screaming, Claire, what the fuck did you do? You know, this and that. And she's like, shh, shh, shh. She's trying to calm her down and she won't shut up. So she fucking sticks I think it's a sewing needle like in the side of her head.
Ooh, gnarly.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about this short, and the thing that's so beautiful about it is like, you know, you can see there's some depth in this character. You know, there's definitely some emotionality there. You know, Jill wasn't playing her as some like, you know, Freddy Krueger or something like that. And it almost seems like a woman who's like so broken. You know, obviously like, you know, it makes sense, the broken doll scenario, right? So she goes into this back room and there's a vanity mirror there and there's like all kinds of candles lit and stuff. And you can see, you know, maybe she's done this before. You know, I think you see like, you know, wigs like around and stuff. She wears this particular woman that she just killed, her hair, and she's kind of talking to like her at first, you know, and then she just keeps saying like, I need to be perfect. I need to be perfect. And as you see her actually putting on the wig, you can see there's scars like in the back of her head and stuff. You know, so you don't really necessarily know what's going on there. But the cool thing about it is like, you know, she doesn't give any kind of sinister grin or anything to the camera. She's not mugging at all. She starts crying. And that's pretty much how the short ends. Like she's either broken by what she had to do at the, you know, just, you know, at that moment, or she just, you know, like obviously like, you know, just a broken character in general. Like, you know, there's some sort of, you know, like damaged psyche thing going on there. But I think Jill and her crew actually, I think they just did a feature. They crowdfunded it. I think it was last year. So I think they just got it done. I'm really excited to see where that character and of course Jill's career is going to go. And I don't care, you know, I don't categorize women in their own category when it comes to, you know, direction and producing and stuff like that, you know, like
male directors. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's just bullshit. Jill's definitely a force to be reckoned with. So I really, I'm excited to see what she does with this particular character for sure. Definitely awesome. One of my favorites. And you can find that on Alter, and it's on Shudder. So we've hit our quota. There you go. What's next on your list?
Actually, this one is, I mentioned that I was part of the judging board for the film festival that we did for several years going. And this next one is actually one that won the Best Horror Short Prize in 2017. Mm-hmm. When it was submitted to us, it was called Agatha mm-hmm. by Timothy Vandenberg. It's an example of how, you know, you just use atmosphere and not too much else to really set the tone of this story about a woman who hires little orphan children mm-hmm. to take a plate of food upstairs to the attic and leave it there on the table for whatever is living in the attic. Yeah. And it's usually raw meat. So you're like, oh, okay. And this little girl, you know, does it faithfully and obediently, and she gets lots of money, and she's very excited about that. And then as the film progresses, you realize that when she goes to take the previous plate back, it hasn't been touched. Like, the thing in the attic hasn't been eating it.
Yeah.
And of course, spoiler for the ending, but that's when she realizes, basically, she goes up for the last time, and the chain that Agatha is tied to, like, tightens, and she comes up behind her, and you realize that essentially that these orphan children are being hired to be food for this vampire beast lady thing. And it's really great, because it's the vampire beast lady stays in the dark, in the shadows, almost the entire time. There's only really one moment when she comes out and you can see her face, but it's plenty effective anyway. Like, you don't need a whole lot of stuff to make a great short, and this short is proof of that. And it actually landed on Crypt TV as part of their Top of the Stairs series. So if you go on YouTube and find Crypt TV and search Top of the Stairs Agatha, you will find that film, and I think it's great. The atmosphere is really cool. The costuming, it's a period piece, and the costuming is all really well done. So,
there's actually one that piggybacking off of Crypt TV. I wanted to mention The Birch, because that one really impacted people, especially the Birch design, which is just, I mean, that's just breathtaking.
Yeah.
So I think Crypt TV actually did a series. I think it was on Facebook Watch. It's called The Birch. I think it's like a 7-part series or something like that. I'm not sure, like, what the length of the episodes are or anything. I am, like, really kind of stoked to watch it, especially after seeing this short again. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it might have been a UK production, this particular short. You see this English schoolboy. He looks about maybe 16, 17. He's being chased by this other young gentleman, and it looks like, he's in a very serious situation. Like, maybe this, kid is not even just going to just beat his ass, but maybe kill him. And then he kind of stops and he says a few words, and then it just, kind of cuts into him talking to an ailing grandmother or an aunt or something. I'm not exactly sure, but she says, all good children will be protected by the birch. So this kid finally, catches up to him, and he's like screaming in his face, and I think he's got a knife in his hand. And then all of a sudden, they both turn around, and you see this amazing, God of the woods, witch, whatever you want to call it, and it just looks like a tree come to life, with these like amazing, like, gnarly teeth, and that design is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's threatening too, which is weird, because you can make a nice happy tree like the Ents from Lord of the Rings, for example. Yeah. But this is not a nice tree. This is a threatening tree.
Yeah, for sure. But I also love the concept that it's protective. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I mean is that its look is threatening.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Even though it's protecting the child.
It looks like something out of Guillermo del Toro's mind.
Absolutely, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
Yeah. But I do love the fact that it's protective, and like, obviously it's gonna make victims of the people who deserve it. But is actually a catalyst for safety and protection and comfort. I think that's really, really cool. It's a great short. It really is.
And that director is great too, Anthony Melton. He's done another one called Don't Move, which is about a group of kids at a party who summon a demon, and then find out that he can detect them based on if they move. But what I really love about the short in particular is that it doesn't show the ceremony of the seance or anything like that.
Right.
It opens after they've summoned the demon, and all 5 of them are standing at different parts of the house, frozen still, waiting for this demon, which the special effects for are pretty freaking great to come and overtake them, essentially. That's the same director as The Birch. So
nice.
He's got good character design instincts.
What's next on your list?
Just to give a shout out to this short that I watched on Vimeo. Actually, when we were prepping for the witch episode, it's called Goat Witch, directed by James Sizemore, and it's basically like it's an incredible use of special effects, but not an over the top CGI way. Like it's basically just this ritual, this, you know, there's chanting, and then the witch, you know, gets painted, and she's lying down on a slab, and you know, this demon comes out of the ground and starts, you know, and starts licking her and all this horrible stuff, and the special effects are just great. Like ultimately the new Goat Witch version of the witch comes out of the stomach of the old body, like, you know, like alien style, like like chest burster, and she's got these really gnarly horns, and it's just, whew, it's really intense stuff. So if you want to see a basically 12 minutes of witch ritual and goat demons and blood and skulls, this is for you.
And just in passing too, I just want to let you know that I watched a film I completely forgot to mention at the top called The Wretched, and it's really good. It's kind of like a coming of age story. It's kind of like, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets Fright Night. You know, this kid thinks he's living next door to a witch, and just the witch design is fantastic, and she kind of comes out of the cavity of a deer.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I just have a couple more. There's one I wanted to mention that I think I saw on Alter, called The Smiling Man, and it just really like impacted me visually because it's just so simple, and it's just, you know, basically this girl. I do love the fact that she's watching like these, you know, like she's in a dark room, watching like these old like Mickey Mouse cartoons like from the 40s and stuff, and I do love that aesthetic of it. And she kind of goes down the stairs, and she keeps seeing, you know, balloons like on each stair. So she kind of starts picking them up, and then, you know, she sees like you know, like a toy or some sort of candy or something, and she's picking that up. And then she notices as she's going, as she keeps going towards this, you know, bathroom or whatever it is, you know, that obviously things are in disarray. You know, there's something, you know, going on. So when she walks into this like really like purely white bathroom, you know what I mean? Like, dare I say stereotypical bathroom, it is white. But it just fits because, you know, you see this thing that, you know, looks sort of human to a degree. It almost looks like I would, dare I say, like a psychotic, like crackhead dipped in flour. It's yeah. But it's, you know, the performance of this actor is just impeccable. And I can see why it won, you know, quite a few awards and stuff. So she doesn't really scream, and she's looking at this guy, and he's kind of like, he's like smiling, like all weird. And then he sees the balloons, and he goes, oh, and he starts dipping his finger, and like, you know, looks like, well, obviously it's a puddle of blood on the floor. He starts like, you know, making, you know, like rosy cheeks with it, and he dips a little bit on his nose, and then he finally gets, you know, the clown makeup down with the blood and stuff. And this girl is like completely okay with this fucking thing until she sees her, I guess it's her mother, like, you know, she's kind of wrapped up in a shower curtain, and obviously that's where the blood flow is coming from, because the mother's still alive, but, you know, you could tell she's like at her last moment or something. And it's all great, and it really works, and it's really simple. But the thing that really pisses me off about it is that, you know, it goes for the jump scare. And that was the one thing we never mentioned about the short film. Like, there's a lot of great storytelling and a lot of great, you know, visions and stuff like that. But then it seems like a lot of people just kind of go for the, rah! You know, and that's like 50% of these short films that I've watched.
There are a lot of them that do that, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really care for it. I'm not a...
Well, I mean, yeah, a jump scare is not... It's not a scare. It's just startling you. It's the same as like turning a corner and being like, boo! Like,
Well, it's like, to me, like, when you're watching, like, just something animated that's just, for catering to a child. And then you could see that somebody, like, kind of try to squeak in, like, maybe some sexual reference or a curse word or something, that the child wouldn't necessarily know what that means in context. It's just lazy. It's lazy writing. That's what it is. And that's what I think, for the most part. I think jump scares are effective to some degree, but sometimes it just seems like, yeah, we ran out of road. We have no fucking, we don't know where to go with this thing. And there's a lot of it with short films, which I was really sad to see. It's just a very cheap way to end something.
Yeah.
So anyway, the last one I wanted to talk about is we talk about David F. Sandberg at the top of the show. And Holly had mentioned that he did Lights Out, and he also directed Shazam, which is really interesting because, Shazam was like this DC, kind of like Amblin style film. It was a comedy geared, for, families, and even little kids could see it and stuff like that. But even in this, like, there's a character who conjures up the 7 deadly sins, and there's a scene where he's in a conference room, like, of a big office building, and the 7 deadly sins, like, basically, like, start throwing people out of windows and start eating their heads. And yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, so you could tell that, like, even, like, hey, if I'm going to do Shazam, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to incorporate some terror elements into it. So I wanted to talk about David Sandberg's short film that he made during quarantine called Shadowed, which he kind of calls his follow-up to Lights Out. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do with that. And it's just him and his wife, Lotta, again. They're trapped in their house, due to the pandemic. And they decided to make this little 2-minute short film where Lotta is, like, kind of walking through their house, and she sees, like, just shadows everywhere, like shadows of a vase, or shadows, from a rocking chair. And you see, like, somebody is actually, like a shadow is actually rocking in the chair. And then she finally gets into the hallway, and there's this kind of, like, contorted shadow, and he's, like, got his back turned to her. And, like, as she's getting ready to turn around and shut the door behind her, he kind of, like, runs towards it and stuff. And then she gets into the last room, and then you see, like, this in the room, there's, like, a bunch of shadows, and some of them have, like, weapons and stuff, and they're kind of like like tapping them, like, yeah, we're gonna get you now. And she just, it just ends with her going, oh fuck. Like, and that's it. And it's brilliant. And this is something they did during quarantine, which is wild. Yeah, so that's it for short films, guys. Like, I hope we've shown you that there, like, if you didn't think short films were important, there is definitely a lot of levity when it comes to creativity in the, in the smaller film fashion. Has done a lot for the genre, and given us probably some of our greater visionaries in the genre, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that'll continue. Especially during the pandemic, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are kind of, picked to do certain things in Hollywood when it starts to finally open up. We're going to see some interesting short film directors doing some big ass shit. So yeah, I'm excited for that. So that's it for us, guys. Like I said, we're staying on YouTube. We're excited. You can like and subscribe on the HorrorWeb YouTube channel. Please feel free, please do so. We love your continued love and support. We'll have more news when it comes to the podcast. The podcast is coming up very, very soon, so it's not going to be a long wait at all. And so Radio Shields is now Newtown Radio. We actually moved from regular radio to digital radio, so the show can actually be heard in the UK. Right after quarantine. We're at 11 p.m. Where the naughty people take, like,
yeah, I was gonna say that's like the porn slot.
Yeah, we're the porn slot. Put your kids to bed. Here comes Dungeon of Deadly Delights. So yeah, that's it for us. Join us next time when we're going to be talking about a really cool topic, and I'm really super excited about this one. It's clowns and carnivals. So yeah, that's going to be a great
creepy amusement parks. And no, the entire episode is not going to be about it.
No. Definitely not. So that's it, guys. That's it. Be safe. Continue to, protect yourself, wash your hands, and all that stuff, and we'll scare you later. Talk to you soon.